My name is Keith Stern. This is my wife, Monica.
We've been helping out with Downtown Faith pretty much since it started.
The uniqueness of Downtown Faith and intermingling with the community down here is just a way to reach out and love your neighbor. Your neighbor can be the person sitting right next to you or a perfect stranger that you meet on the street. They all need God's love.
Making disciples, for me personally, being a part of Downtown Faith, it reminds me of my grandma. Our childhood wasn't really good, but no matter what, she always prayed for us, and we would go visit her, and she would take us to church and take us to Vacation Bible School, and so she would love us no matter where we were, what we were doing. And for me, I want to be able to be a part of just loving on people and reaching people and letting them know that Jesus loves them. I think I would encourage someone to embrace the mission of Downtown Faith, first of all, by just coming and experiencing it, experiencing the people that are there, going to all the different events, the pub theology, the gatherings on Sunday. I think once you go to those events, you automatically want to be a part of that.
The downtown area is coming back to life. It's revitalized. There's a lot going on down here that the church needs to be a part of.
So when I was in 5th grade, I was playing basketball in the league basketball championship. Yeah, big times in my life. 2 minutes left in the game, and our coach calls a timeout. And the reason he called a timeout is because there was a rule in the league that every kid had to play at least 2 minutes of the game in every game. And we've been in this hard-fought championship game, and the coach realized, oh, wait, the kid at the end of the bench, the kid who doesn't even really want to be on the team, his parents kind of made him play, and he hadn't scored a point all season, and he doesn't really want to be in this moment, but he hasn't got a chance to play. So the coach calls a timeout and says, hey, I have to put him in. And my childish reaction was like, no, we want to win, right? So myself and one other kid on the team, Taylor Cobb, we were lighting it up that day, right? Like as 5th graders do. And we were in this last 2 minutes, and the game was really close. And coming down the last 15 seconds left, I shoot a 3-pointer, which I wasn't supposed to even do. I was the big guy, supposed to stand down low, right? And I shoot this 3-pointer, and it goes in, and we go up by 1 point. And so we run down the court. All we have to do is play defense for 15 seconds, and we win the championship game. And so 15 seconds comes down. They come down with the ball. They shoot. They miss. We don't get the rebound. Oh, they get the rebound. They put it back. They miss. And Jonathan, the kid at the end of the bench who doesn't even want to be on the team or in the game, gets the rebound. With only a few seconds left, all he has to do is hold the ball, and we win the championship. But because Jonathan's not yet scored a point this entire season, the entire crowd starts yelling, shoot, shoot. And Jonathan, in the moment, not realizing the bigness of this moment, having not yet really played in the game except for this last 2 minutes, he hears, shoot. And so he does. But he's standing at the wrong team's basket. And the ball goes in. And he scores his first points of the season for the wrong team. And not only that, they win the championship because of his only 2 points of the year. Now, Jonathan thinks he won the game for us. And so he's cheering. The other team actually lifts him up and is cheering for him. He didn't win the game for us. It was one of the worst sporting moments of my life, like best and worst at the same time, because it was a memory. And I just assumed that they were going to not count the points, but they sure did. When he found out about it, I can assure you, he never played sports again. He cried for days, his mother said. But when it comes to sports, one of the great things about team sports is everyone understands the purpose behind it is to win, right? You can say it's to have fun. You can say it's to get better or to build character. But ultimately, the purpose is to win, and sports is a great metaphor in life because it does build character, and it is fun, and there's team building and all those great things. But every team starts off the season with a purpose. We want to win games. We want to win the championship. And it's very similar here at the church. We have a purpose. We know what our win is. We understand as an organization, as a team, as a group of people, what we want to do. And winning for us is Downtown Faith. We exist to help people follow Jesus into a new life of worship, commitment, love, generosity, by creating space to discuss life and faith. This is what burns passionately inside of us. This is what drives us, is this organizational statement. This is what we want to do for the downtown area specifically. We have this. We know as a team and as people who come in and join in are part of what we want to do, that this is what we want to do as an organization. And currently we're in a series called Who Are We? And we're kind of letting people know who we are as an organization, as a church, as a people. And last week we kind of are, as we break apart this statement, last week we said that when Jesus used the word church, he used a different word than what comes into our mind. He used this word in the Greek as ekklesia, okay? And what it is, it's not a what, it's not a place, it's not a building, it's a people. It's a people group. And so we said that the church, as we talk about being a church, what does that mean? We said it's a local gathering of believers who help people follow Jesus, love each other, worship God together, and embody Jesus within their community. They have this relationship to each other, to God, and to the surrounding community. And we said that that's the kind of church we want to be. We want church to be a who, not a what, not a place. It's not a building, it's a people. And that we want to be that people that exemplify this. And we looked at what happened when the early church started. And what we saw was that a community of faith brings hope to a faithless community. That what a community of faith can do, done right, done well, is it brings hope to a faithless community. People get to peek over the fence into that group, and it should be, oh, wow, they have something that is missing in our life. They have something that brings a light into the darkness. They have something that makes this community better, that makes them better. They're not perfect, but man, look at how they resolve situations. Look at their marriages. Look at how they interact with people. Look at how they serve their community. Because a community of faith, done right, done well, brings hope to a faithless community. We say that every thriving community needs vibrant communities of faith. There should be multiple. We don't think we're the only church that should be in downtown. No, we partner with other churches, and we want to see them thrive and be successful because we know that these communities of faith bring hope to a faithless community in downtown. And so we're looking at this, and we're breaking apart our purpose statement. And so today we're going to talk about the mission to help people follow Jesus into a new life. This is the mission. This is the why we exist. When people ask me, what kind of church are you? Sometimes it's very difficult to answer because I'm not sure what they're looking for with the question, right? Like maybe they're looking for a denomination, right? Are you part of this larger group? And we're not. So I'm like, well, we're not that, right? Like we're not a part of this large group. Or maybe there's this network that starts churches all over the country. And it's like, well, we're not a part of that either. We don't have one of those either. And then like, oh, we're just non-denominational. And it's like, well, that's become its own denomination. And we're kind of, maybe we're that. I don't know what that means to you. And then sometimes they're like, are you Christian? And Christian has this broad, huge term in America that encompasses all these things that I'm not sure if when they say Christian means the same thing as when I say Christian. And so that's sometimes a very difficult conversation to have is who are you? So what I kind of boiled it down to is this. I tell people, what kind of church are we? Well, we're the kind of church that we follow Jesus and we want to help other people do the same. I kind of just keep it simple like that, right? Like that kind of maybe cuts through some of the mess is we follow Jesus and we want to help people do the same thing. And that's who we are. And so that's what I want to talk about today, what it looks like to follow Jesus and to help people do the same. That is the mission of the church. In Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, he says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And the why is so crucial. It is so important for people to grasp on and to hold on and to get on board with what's going on in your organization. And so here at the church, we believe that Jesus gave us a mission to help other people follow him. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to look in Matthew chapter 28. So Jesus, kind of where we're at in this story, in the Gospel of Matthew, this is basically the account of Jesus according to this guy Matthew who followed Jesus. Jesus had lived, he had died, he had risen again, and now he was kind of like hanging out with his disciples, right? Like this is one of those moments, and we're going to find out how much we relate to this. It's one of those moments where like someone came back from the dead and they're hanging out with you. That's kind of a big deal. Like sometimes I think in like Christian world, or maybe you grew up in church, people just kind of gloss over that. It's like, no. What these people held on to, what they experienced was their friend die, be buried, not there when they go there, and then he shows up and hangs out with them. He eats with them. And according to the records that we see and the people who wrote about this, it was like over 500 people that saw Jesus after he died and was buried. And I don't want to just gloss over that. This is a big deal. This is a big moment because it says that then the 11 disciples, you think, wasn't there 12? Well, the one who betrayed Jesus is no longer in the picture. It says they left for Galilee, going to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshiped him, but some of them doubted. Right? Like they're looking at their friend who raised from the dead, and like some of their friends are worshiping him. They're like, oh my goodness, they're celebrating this. And then they're looking and they're going, yeah, right. I'm looking at him, I see it, and I'm still not sure what I'm seeing. Maybe that's you today. Like maybe you hear about Jesus raising from the dead, you hear about the church stuff, and you think to yourself, I think I would be like one of those people that's just doubting, right? Like I'm looking right at him and I'm still going, I don't know if I can believe this. Let's continue. It says, Jesus came and told his disciples, the word's important, we're going to talk about it here in just a second. I have been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Therefore, based on that authority that I've been given, go and make disciples of all the nations, everybody, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given you, and be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. So we see Jesus is talking to his followers, his disciples, and I think it's very important that we understand what that means, and he's giving them this call to go and make more disciples, right? Like these are the people he's talking to, the people who are currently following him, and he's saying, go and make more of yourself, right? Like go reproduce yourself. And so a disciple is simply this. So we're very clear, so we're on the same page of what it means to be a disciple. It's one who imitates a teacher or philosopher's life, adheres to their values, and reproduces their teachings, much more than a transfer of information. See, maybe you've been to a church and the transfer of information is very important, right? They want to make sure you have the right data, the right theology, that you say the right things, that you know the right things, the right teachings. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, but if that's where it stops, there's not really this discipleship that happens. Because when Jesus said to teach these new disciples, what he meant was the teaching that he had done. That he had done with those disciples that were listening to him. It was not just a transfer of information. He lived life with them. He taught them by being there when they celebrated things. He taught them by being there when they were having hard times. He taught them by being a part of their life. And so a lot of times people want to show up on Sunday, they want to learn something they never heard before from the Bible, and then they want to leave unchanged, and they want that to be discipleship. And maybe you've been in church world like that before, where it's this transfer of information. But Jesus is like, no. I want you to live life with people. And I want you to show them me by the way you live your life together with people. But it's also interesting when we look at these disciples is the disciples were not religious leaders. They were regular people. See, that's another thing is sometimes people think, well, I'm not anybody special. I don't know a lot about the Bible. I'm not this religious person. And that's okay because Jesus chose guys who weren't like that. He chose regular people to be his disciples. Also, they weren't ready. They were very raw. I mean, you see some of them that are standing there are doubting what just happened, even though Jesus told them it was going to happen, and now he's standing in front of them, and they're still doubting because they weren't ready for what was going to happen. There wasn't some special thing going on inside these group of guys. They were regular people like us. They were raw. They struggled with belief. Do you struggle with belief? They struggled. Jesus would do something, and they would be like, what? What did you just do? And then he would be like, I've been living with you for like 3 years. You don't believe me yet? I've done this kind of things before last week, remember? They were so raw. They weren't ready. Maybe you feel like that. You're like, yeah, I think I kind of believe, and I'm not sure. Sometimes I don't believe, and you're raw. That's how you would describe yourself. Good. That's a great place to be. Those are the kind of people that Jesus used, regular, raw people. And so the people that he called to go out and make more of themselves were these disciples. And that's who he was talking to. And so now I want to look at the mission, not just the people of the mission, but the mission itself. What is it? What did Jesus want it to be? And we pull this right from what we just read in the Bible. And first off, the mission is reproduction, not replication. Again, it's not replication in scientific world is this basically this cloning of exact information, right? It's an exact copy of data. Whereas reproduction is more organic, right? Like my kid, he looks like me. Sometimes he acts like me. But he's not this exact replication of me. He's a reproduction of me, which means he's going to have his own nuances, his own characteristics, but he's still from me. He's still reproduced from me. And so we see that it's more of this organic biological term rather than this very static mechanical thing. Is discipleship happens organically, which means people living life together produce more disciples living life together produce more disciples. And then that's what that is. That's what it looks like to reproduce ourselves, to be in life with each other. It's not just replication. A lot of times, maybe you've been to a church like this where you felt like you had to just fit into this mold, this thing that they've created, this body of people. They have the words they say, they have the way they dress, and if you look like them, then you're in. If you can't look like them, and discipleship seems to be more about making you look like them, then you don't really fit in. You ever felt that? That's not real discipleship. It's reproduction. You're going to have your own self still, but it's going to look more and more like Jesus. It's teaching, not telling. It's teaching, not telling. A transfer of information doesn't work. It just doesn't. More information does not create transformation. Right? We know that. We know that. I mean, if you look at in the public school systems when they started teaching sex education, right? Teen pregnancy skyrocketed. Right? Because information didn't cause transformation. They wanted to help them have safer sex, and they wanted it to be this thing where maybe they would practice abstinence based on the information we're giving them, and it didn't. It skyrocketed. And so we know the information. We get it because we all know things, and we still do the opposite. Right? I mean, look at me. I know donuts don't get you to a good body. That information is not lost on me. But life change doesn't happen through more information, right? I have to stop eating donuts. And so teaching is about living life together. There's this relationship between a teacher and a learner. So it's not just telling people, it's teaching people. And it's inclusively exclusive. It's inclusively exclusive. I love the term, Jesus says, all nations. I want you to go and I want you to do this with everybody from everywhere. God loves variety, right? He created variety, and he loves it. There is no one anywhere that cannot be a part of the grace of God, that cannot be a part of this process of discipleship. There is no one anywhere that cannot be a part of it. But it's also a little exclusive as well, right? So there's no one that can't follow Jesus as the only way. That's what we see here. Is go tell all nations to follow me. Go tell everyone to follow me into relationship with God. And so that's what we see. We see that it's inclusively exclusive. And a lot of times churches themselves are just exclusive. But we want to be very inclusive because we believe that each and every person that we cross on the street, that we meet at that restaurant, that we interact with is someone who is made in the image of God, who is loved by God, and who deserves the grace of God just like I did. That they deserve to hear about Jesus just like me and to live a new life. I want to help them, whoever they are. So the mission is reproduction, not replication, teaching, not telling, and inclusively exclusive. So here's what I want for us as we go into this. Maybe you recognize this from the Olympics. Think global, act local. I thought it was one of the coolest things they did at the Olympics and the open ceremonies. This was kind of the environmental perspective that they put out there. Think global, act local. The idea with a lot of churches is they put a lot of money into foreign missions, right? Like when you hear people talk about the mission of the church, they think of missionaries who go across the ocean, and they're all about that. But they miss the aspect of going across the street to their neighbor who maybe isn't like them or doesn't even like them, and telling them about Jesus. Building a relationship to where you even have credibility to talk about Jesus with them. Getting to know them. It's one of the reasons why we sit around tables and discuss is so that we can get to know our neighbors. It's so we can get to know what makes them tick. What do they believe? Where are they in life? Foreign missions is great. We should think global. We want all nations, but we should act local. We should carry this mission on in our neighborhoods, in our schools, in our workplaces. Think global. Act local. So I told you the story earlier about Jonathan. It wasn't just because it's a great story about heartbreak in sports. Jonathan, later on, when I was in college, he was getting ready to graduate high school. I had the opportunity to help him take first steps in following Jesus. We became friends much, much later after the pain and hurt had died down in my soul. But I was able to help him take first steps into following Jesus. And Jonathan now lives in Uruguay. He's starting churches, just like we're doing here. He's doing that in Uruguay with his wife and his kids. And he's training up national pastors to be pastors of these churches in Uruguay. And he's doing an amazing work overseas. So I admire him. I keep up with him on Facebook and through his letters that he puts out to people about what's going on in their life and how they're building relationships in a country that is not their own, in a culture that is not their own. And so he's been called to think global and to act global and to go to another country. And I love that. And I want to support that. And we want to, as a church, support work here and work abroad. But as far as our actions, where we live, don't get so caught up in thinking about someone else, somewhere else, in another culture, another community that needs Jesus. But I think if you are a disciple, you need to be reproducing disciples right here in your community. And if not, maybe you're somewhere you're like, hey, that's not me. I'm not a disciple. I don't follow Jesus yet. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that you came. And that you took a step and you were courageous enough to step into a gathering at church. And I'll tell you this, we want to help you follow Jesus. We believe that what he has to offer changes lives in the best possible way. And we want to help you follow Jesus. And we want to be that neighbor. And we want to be that disciple that Jesus calls to make other disciples. And that's why we exist. That is the heartbeat of Downtown Faith.